Hi everyone, I'm going to camo paint this rifle, and in this video I'm going to show you the process of it. I will show you the things you need to have and basically go step by step. I already have made some videos about camo painting. One of them was about how to paint your scope and other small hunting gear, and I have also done some painting a truck or the tailgate of my truck. So these are bigger items. The method is slightly different. I haven't done a rifle yet because I basically ran out of things to paint. So this rifle belongs to a friend of mine. I'm not going to paint the usual camouflage colors. I'm going to keep the black color because for one, it's already black, and for two, I have the scope, which is black, but I'm not sure if I can paint it because the scope is slightly soft, so it's sort of like a softer plastic, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to paint it. I will try maybe a little part, but if it doesn't work, I think the colors might bleed into each other too much and it's not gonna look good. So in that case, the scope will stay black, and it just wouldn't make sense to paint the gun with brown and green and things like that. So here's an example. This is my gun. This is a little 22. As you can see, it's a brown wooden stock, and I painted the scope so that it actually matches it in color. I didn't add any green or anything. I basically added like a caramel brown, a dark brown, and a beige, and that was it. So it kind of matches, right? So that's what I want to do with this gun. You will need spray paint. So I have 2 shades of gray, 1 black, and I have clear. So all of this paint is basically satin finish. I didn't want it to be shiny, so I want it to be like a nice and matte color. And the clear coat is also matte. I want to add it on the top to protect it, but we don't want anything to be shiny. So I have these things. I have tape because you need to tape everything that you don't want to paint over. So of course I have scissors for that. I do have some paintbrushes, some very fine ones, just in case I need to touch up anything. I will use plants as I always do. This is my favorite. This plant looks really good. It's easy to paint. It's relatively flat. You can just kind of, lay it flat on whatever you're painting and just put it on and paint. And you need to have more than one because it's going to get saturated with the paint. The other thing that I like to use, so I have this bag of onions, and we're not going to use the onions, but we're going to use the bag, and I wanted to show you this is what it looks like. There are other bags that onions come in, and they're not all that good. If the squares are smaller, the paint is not going to go through it too well. They will just look like little teeny tiny dots or nothing at all. So you need to have this kind. It's a purple bag. In my opinion, there's no reason to buy anything special. Just use what you have. And I also have alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and some cotton balls because I'm going to basically, wipe off everything so that there are no oils from your fingers or dirt or anything. And then we're going to get started. I have an Allen wrench, and this replaces a screwdriver because I couldn't find one. And I will need these to take off the rings for the scope, and that is basically it. As you could see, it was dirty. I mean, it wasn't dirty, but all this stuff will come off with the alcohol. So you definitely want to clean it so you're not painting over all those oils and whatever. Here I'm taping over most of the metal parts and the barrel. In my opinion, there's never a reason to paint the barrel, and just keep in mind to be very precise in taping over exactly what you don't want to paint over. I forgot to tape over that part, but luckily just very little paint got on it, so make sure you don't make that mistake. When you use this net, the best way to do it is stretch it slightly. You don't need to stretch it all the way, but you want to make sure it lays
flat against the surface, otherwise it's not going to look right. When you spray the paint, it is best if you first spray it on something else. Even though you shake it and you do everything you're supposed to do, the paint could come out a little splattered or just uneven, and once you spray it on your object, it's just gonna be a mess, so it's hard to fix it. So I did this every time I painted, even though I was already painting. It's just a good precaution to have. You need to carefully inspect the leaves you're using. First of all, they need to lay flat on the surface. And as you can see, this one is actually pretty thick. So with all these layers, if you're painting over it, it's just not even going to go through it. So you need to cut out or tear out everything that's in the way, and you just need one clean layer. And that's what you're going to put on the surface, as flat as possible, and then you just spray it. So here are my suggestions. First, you might just want to kind of quickly plan out how you're going to set up your design, but really don't overthink it. As I mentioned earlier, make sure you spray it somewhere else first, just so it won't splatter, and then just spray it lightly, very fast, and then just keep going. Don't overthink it. Just put it here, put it there, just spray fast. You can't really mess it up too much anyways. Overthinking it will just cause you to mess it up. So you just really have to go for it. I will talk to you about these advice at the end of the video, but I just wanted to point this out because this whole thing really is very fast. This is the best part of the whole thing. Taping it up and everything is boring and takes a long time, but painting itself is really quick, and in my opinion, the quicker you make it, the better it will look. The first 2 layers of paint took forever to dry. That was sort of surprising to me. The first layer was the black, and it doesn't have to dry completely. Like, it doesn't have to be hard like it is here. I was tapping it. The first one, it's okay if it's maybe like 80% dry. You can put your design on it, but then you have to wait for that to be hard and completely dry. So I just did the one side, and I had to leave it overnight in my garage. You just wait as long as it takes, and then I flipped it over, and now I was doing the other side, starting with the black and then doing the design on it, and then basically you're just going to wait it out and let it dry. So painting it, like I said, I have to emphasize this, you just do it fast. The 2 sides don't have to match, because you're not trying to make things symmetrical. You're not trying to make it in a certain order. This is mimicking nature. It's going to be completely unorganized, completely irregular, and you just have to go for it. You're basically choosing what looks aesthetically pleasing to you, and there are millions of different ways to do it. Even if you think that you're not very creative or artistic and you're not good at it, trust me, you can't really mess it up too much anyways. You just put these leaves however you want. You can leave spaces open, you can overcrowd other areas, you can just kind of cover them almost evenly. The more you do it, the more confident you will become, and the more confident you become, the easier it gets, and the better it will be, with less chances of you getting frustrated and having to fix things. I was really not sure about the scope because the material is kind of soft, and I was even just going to leave it black, but I thought I would just try this one little spot and see how it works out. And interestingly, this was the easiest thing to paint. The design didn't bleed into each other. It stayed sharp. It dried super fast. So when I saw it, I just decided to go for the whole thing. As you can see, this side is basically covered with all the plants, and I didn't like it. I didn't know what I didn't like about it. It just didn't seem right, and I realized that it was just too flowery. But I had to walk away from it for me to realize that. So this was at night. I just knew the more I think about it, the worse it's gonna be. So I went to sleep, and then the next morning before I went to work, I looked at it, and then I realized that it's just too flowery. This is for a man. This is not even for me. And I just feel like if you have that reptile look with that net, I think it would be better. And it just felt right. So I did it really quickly, and it just all came together. So here's another advice. If you're looking at it and you're not really sure, just walk away and come back to it later, and you will know how to fix it, or you might even like it. So this turned out really well. The funny thing was that I took pictures of how it was first and then how it was after I fixed it. And at school, I showed it to some of my students. These are high schoolers, and there were 4 guys and 1 girl. And the funny thing was, out of them, the 1 girl and 3 guys thought it looked better with all the plants. I was really surprised because I thought they were guys, they were gonna look at it that way. But either way, I went with what I decided. You just kind of have to trust your gut instincts. But like I said earlier, just walk away and don't stress about it. I thought I was all done. I put the scope on the gun, and I realized that it was just too gray. So took it off, wrapped this net around it, and then just went over it with black. And after this, the only things you have left to do is spray everything with a clear coat and take off the tape, inspect it, see if you need to do any final touches. That's why you have those little brushes, and that's basically it. Now, there are some problems sometimes with the paint bubbling, and I did have a little bit of issues with it. I pretty much fixed it all. I'm going to do a video about it because I think it's a huge problem. I still don't know why it happens. I heard a lot of people telling me the things you can do to avoid it, and I did all those, and it still happened here and there. So just look for that video, because I'm sure it will happen to you if it hasn't already.
So I'm basically done, and I'm overall happy with how it turned out. It will be picked up tomorrow, so we'll see how he likes it. But before we get to that, I want to sort of summarize the 3 most important tips I can give you. So if this is your first time, these are the things I would suggest to keep in mind. The first one is you just have to go for it. You can't overthink, you can't doubt yourself or second guess or stress out how it's going to work out and worry, because if you do that, it's just going to get messed up. So this is the most important thing. Just go for it. The second tip is, at the same time that you're doing things fast, you also have to give everything time. So spraying, you're going to do it super fast, but then you have to just wait and give it time. The paint has to dry. You can't rush paint drying. And as I've learned during this project, you can never tell what's going to happen. And the third one is, don't try to make it perfect. You're trying to mimic nature, and nature is not perfect. It's not organized evenly. It's not symmetrical. It's not very precise. So for you, this is good news, because you don't have to worry about laying everything out in an orderly fashion. This side here does not have to match this side. This doesn't have to match this. So just, if you take a look at nature, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. These are my 3 tips. All right, so here's Moses coming to look at his rifle, see what he thinks.
All right, here we go. Oh, wow. That's nice. It's dry, right?
It should be, yes. It should be pretty dry, but
yeah.
I don't think it's as hard as I would want it to be. So I would say it should maybe stay with me for a couple of more days or a week. So you see how the 2 sides are
Nice.
are not symmetrical because it's not supposed to be.
Yeah. I like the design. I like the different patterns.
Like it?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So the
Scope
turned out actually, I think it turned out, it needs to be, just a little, but you could fix that.
Yeah.
But the scope turned out really, like, surprisingly well. I thought that was going to give me a hard time because it's softer and the paint dried super quick, and it didn't bleed into it, height stayed kind of sharp. So I was happy with that. Otherwise it was going to stay black.
That's nice. I'm happy.
All right.
It came out better than expected.
Really? That's good.
Yeah, it's nice.
All right. I'm happy to hear that.
Good job.
Thank you. If you found this video helpful in any way, then you might want to consider subscribing to my channel. I plan on making quite a few videos in the near future, painting guns or scopes or other small hunting gear. I have a lot of ideas for different designs, so hopefully I get to try them out very soon. And if you hit the notification button, then you get notified when those videos will be uploaded. Also, leave me a comment, tell me what you think. I have a lot of people leave me comments. Often they have questions, but other times they actually have tips and advice based on what they experienced and what they've learned, and that's always very helpful, and I welcome all comments. And other times people are leaving me comments saying, okay, they're gonna do it for the first time, and then they come back and tell me how it worked out. So I definitely want to hear from you. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.